So the first thing we want to do is we want to take all the fairings off. And if you don't know how to take fairings off, I suggest not doing this swap because it is very extensive. So I'm pretty sure, I'm not 100% positive. Welcome back to episode 3 of MOTO-VATION. The last 2 episodes we showed you how to do the wiring on the harness, and the last episode we showed you how to install the 300 motor. And today we're going to show you all the last little tips and tricks and get this thing fired up. So let's get into the episode. I ran to get a couple things that I needed. This is not permanent yet, but I did paint the radiator black. I had to make the holes one step bigger because the well nuts I used, and well nuts are these little rubber pieces right here. You're gonna need 3 of these. You can get them at any hardware store most of the time. And then the bolts that go in these. 3/4 inch is the length that you're gonna need. As you can see, I'm running 2 washers and it doesn't barely stick out the bottom. So I ran these Allen style heads. This is probably what I would suggest, or even a socket style would work. I like Allen's just because I do. I run a lock washer, a regular washer, a little thin one. This is what you need to put it on. This is what we got. All right, so I'm gonna pull the plug and put the new one in. This is the plug that you're gonna need. It's $22. So I would advise probably ordering it online. Just order a couple of them. So this is the part number. So it's an NGK plug. It's actually a genuine Honda part number. Also, highly advised if you need to do the spark plug, do it prior to radiator install. Don't install a radiator without changing the spark plug. And I don't care how new the motor is, put a new spark plug in it just because. Also, always have a magnet. This is why you should change it. This is still a good plug. This is an iridium plug, that's why it's so expensive. NGK IR. So I'm gonna actually keep this because you never know when you're gonna need one. And I don't have a 17mm spark plug socket, so never tighten anything on a spark plug until it's actually all the way in. Don't use a ratchet until it's time to use a ratchet. Spark plugs are very, very fragile. So it's tight. I only go barely up any turn. And we're good. I'm going to get the radiator somewhat mounted so I can see where everything's gonna go. And then I'll probably pull the radiator back off because I am waiting for the spark plug boot. Also make sure you have plenty of radiator hose clamps, is what I should say. So Steady Garage, when you buy the kit or buy the radiator, it comes with all 3 grommets that you'll need. And you're like, there's 4 mounts. Well, on this, you only use 3. So, top 2. These are kind of a pain in the butt to put on. Just a little bit of finesse. And do you need these? 100% do not run your radiator without them. Why? Because these mounts will break. It also comes with this mount to mount the bottom of the radiator. And it mounts to this hole right here. The grommet goes on this side. So, grommet's in, and this goes up on underneath. All right, so this is the new mount. And then up here is the new, this is the stock air box. So you're gonna want about 1 inch or so bolts for that. Also be very careful when you're installing. You don't hit stuff like this, because you end up doing that. This is where this is gonna go, the new bolt. And the only thing I don't really like is how close that fan sits there. I'll probably put some rubber on that piece so it doesn't make contact. I do believe, in my eyes, I think that this should be a slight bit longer. Once it's all bolted up, it'll probably be fine, but I'm gonna put a piece of rubber there. All right, so these are the screws that I used. They're 3/4 of an inch long. The thread pitch is gonna matter upon whatever you choose to use for a well nut. Don't go longer than 3/4 of an inch. 1 inch will probably touch the radiator. And with these well nuts, you don't want to do more than basically a hand tight. Because you go too much, it'll mess them up. So as you can see, nothing's touching the radiator. Gotta fix that. This is the harness after it's all done. This is the controls for the left side. I have to steal these off of a 14 to 15. These are way different than a 2017 Grom. Just an FYI, these controls do not work with a 17. The clutch switch, so that's all wired in. I actually had this wired with both plugs, but this is for the right side control. This long one is for the ignition. I'll get into that in a little bit. This is the gauge cluster, and this is for the SF headlight on this setup. There's one thing I haven't done is I have a headlight kill switch that I'm going to reinstall, but these are all the plugs that you have to do on the front side. Going on down, the other thing I did, which is the tail light. This is obviously longer than the Grom right now. So we're gonna start at the middle and go backwards. Then we're gonna go forwards. I used to have this under here, but as you can see, there's a radiator there now. So I gotta find a new place for the key. The reason why I can't have the key up here anymore is because there's a gauge that goes there now that blocks where the key goes. I'm looking for a new spot for this. It could just be down underneath here. We'll see. Last time you saw it was a little bit different, not by much. Wires are everywhere right now just because I am waiting on this relay. Also waiting for my coil. I got the A-Racer in, the AF1 in. Obviously I don't have an exhaust yet. All of this is wired to the headlight. Cluster is still here. I have to use a 14 to 15 control because I wired it with a 14 to 15 harness. I will put that on. Need to change out this bracket. This is just temporary. My coil does sit here, so I'm interested in seeing how all this is gonna work before I make this. Got the new rectifier. I didn't have one of these, so I had to do this. Mind you, all this isn't exactly where it's gonna go. This is just temporary until I can get the bike to fire. Once the bike fires, then we'll go from there and clean it all up 100%. I'm just really trying to keep this area. I do use it, so the only thing that's gonna be in here is gonna be this fuse block. Currently, you get a headlight, you get a gauge cluster, and you have a tail light over there. And as you heard, The injector's pulsing. Everything's kind of going through its phases. It should be no issues whatsoever. Fingers crossed. I do have to cut a hole for the throttle body. But other than that, that's this right now. One thing I had to do if you're doing a 17 is the plug for the actual fuel pump. You need to extend it. So I cut the harness clean off of the 14 and then I cut very little off of the 250. I could have just used this and extended the wires, but I just used the other one so I didn't have two connections. So two fail points, I only have one fail point. Also, you do need the 250 to 300 rectifier. You have to have it. I mean, you could try and wire this in, but you have a way bigger stator than what's in the grom. Just run that. One place I would like to shout out that has helped me, this guy Brandon over at Steel Cycles. He's the one who I got the motor from, and that was the only call I needed to make. He provided me with the rectifier at a really good price, the motor a really good price. He gave me an excellent price, got the shipping, got it here really fast. If you want to look them up on eBay, I'll put a link in the actual information down below. Give them a call if you ever have any need for a motor or anything. One thing I'm gonna try right now is I do have a CB300F cluster. I just wanted to see the difference. I know this isn't blue like the stock Grom 17 one. I am gonna end up sending this to Trippage to have him change the colors inside. I am gonna pull it apart myself and just kind of look inside after I make sure this works. If the LEDs are pretty easy to replace, I'm gonna try and see if I can get them and just put them in myself. I'll keep you filled in on that. So I'm gonna swap this really quick, see what happens. All right, so we got the cluster plugged in. Let's turn this on. What? Dude, I am so stoked. It's white. That saves me so much money. But notice it says 12,000. The RPM right now, I think for this is set at 13.5. I need to check and see what the actual power on this ends at, but I'm probably only gonna set it to about 11.5. So I got this as a Canadian cluster. If you, I don't know, this little secret, if you hold both these, it'll start flashing. You press 2 times and it changes to miles. It was at 4181 kilometers, so I just tapped it over. It has 2613. The motor has almost 9,000 miles or something like that. Not too worried about that. You just tap this one more time, it gets out of it. That's also how you set your clock. Some people don't know how to set the clock. The one thing I am interested about is the ABS light, because apparently this CB300F had ABS on it. So one thing I wanted to check was, so this is the one thing I knew that I was gonna run into and I wasn't sure how it was gonna go. The actual mounts are a little wider. The mounts for this are more like right here. This shield doesn't mount to this. We'll see, I'll figure something out. Actually, I know exactly what I'm gonna do. Boom. I got the CB cluster worked out. No ABS light. I resolved that inside. This is also now the right bolts for this. So now it bolts on perfectly fine. So they are different, and you'll see how this sits up next to that. This is not screwed together because it won't without modifying this. This is the 300 casing, this whole case, and then internals are actually my Grom internals. All you have to do is trim with a Dremel the lower portion, basically from this edge to this edge, trim that all the way back to basically the line. Once you get it all apart and put it back together, so you need to separate it. Once it's separated, then trim this plastic all the way around just the bottom side. Then is what I did is on the back side, on the inside of this, I put some electrical tape to fill the extra gap. There is always a gap there, so no matter what, moisture can get in, but there is a piece that goes, a rubber boot that basically clips inside there. It's still clipped in, it was perfectly fine. Talk about a mess and a headache. Oh man. I wasn't listening when someone said just use the boot. So this is an NGK stock grom one. This is the 250-300. This actually screws into this. So you just screw it on and unscrew it. This is the one that was on the other one. So I swapped these. This is the same part number as the grom one. So you don't need to get a new coil, you just need the end. And it is made by NGK. I've just been waiting for parts and everything. Finally got pretty much everything I needed. So I'm putting some oil in it right now. And then I'll give her a fire. So this takes a little over 1.5 quarts, 1.66 quarts. So I had about 0.6 of a quart. And then this is a brand new one, obviously. One big piece of advice, clean up your workstation. Don't work like I do sometimes. Or a lot of the times, I guess I should say. Most of the time. Just messy, stuff all over. I try and clean up every day, but one thing I also had to do was extend my wires to my coil. All right, we have oil. Always do a last once over. I've already looked everything over, but I just want to do it again. Make sure everything is tight. Everything is plugged in. All right, that's a better angle. And actually, I forgot. Sounds, this looks funny, but. Next thing, buy better zip ties. I don't plan on it running for very long anyway, so. Alright, that's definitely not the exhaust, but that would be kind of cool. So. Prime it a couple times. Literally first ever fire. That wasn't our rehearsed nothing. This is not finished. Next time you see this, this will be more put together, but I just wanted to go over a few things. Over here, I cleaned up this bracket a little bit. I'm gonna paint it later. It's never seen, it's not super important. It does bug me though. I'm just weird about that. This is kind of clean right now. This is really messy, so I'm gonna probably clean this up. I'm not sure if I said this before, but when you're doing the actual rear sets, you need to space this a little bit so none of this hits. I also did bend this a little bit, so it was, I mean, if I push hard enough, I can maybe hit it. The wires to the actual coil, I made sure to lengthen. Then mounting this is kind of a pain in the butt. The mount that came with the stock OG grom is what this is mounted to. I mounted it way up here. You can't really, I don't think you can see, but there's a spot back there where it has threads on the frame, but that's on the SF. I'm not sure if it's the same for the OG. This is solid, it ain't going anywhere. It's not rubbing on anything. All the wires here are loose around it. It doesn't get hot enough to where it's gonna cause too many problems. I try to get this as straight as possible. I literally took it off several different times, moved it a whole bunch of times. This is pretty much as straight as it's gonna get. On the SF, you literally have to cut through 3 fairings to get this in the right spot. Still need to clean up all this. Just remember, this needs to be spaced as well on this side. Make sure you order this Malcolm Smith Racing, the MSR shifter, so it's far enough away, like measurement wise. This is pretty much the exact same distance as the other side. I got the eraser in the actual stock mount spot for the SF. All these wires are gonna get cleaned up a little bit more and tucked a little bit more back here. I'm gonna get this tucked away for the temporary use, just in case I need to trim it and put the new bottle in. This is a rough finish in a sense. So the next time you see this, it will be put together. Why didn't that work? Maybe my fingers are greasy. Maybe? All right, so all that's left to do is to get it outside and take it for a rip. But we'll show you that on the next episode, along with a walk around of the bike and some more information. So I appreciate you watching. Make sure you click the like, subscribe, leave a comment down below if you have any questions, and make sure to ring the bell so you know when the next episode's uploaded. All right, see you on the next one. Peace. I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't know what I'm saying half the time. I'm sitting here, looking at this little screen, making sure I'm in focus. I don't really like talking. I'm sweating because I'm not good at this. See you on the next episode.